Dave, can
Hello?
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We didn't start yet, but just wanted to make sure you got on the line.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good.
How you feeling, Dave? A little better?
I'm getting better, but the recovery is slower than I thought it was going to be, Ken.
Yeah. Take your time, man. Slow and easy.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, sir.
You got the message from Dave that he won't be here tonight?
You don't
Yes, he's actually on the line now. Yep, I did. He's actually on the line now.
Oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the State Session to order. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, thank you for enabling us to gather here this evening for this meeting. May we have meaningful discussion that will keep us and help us build each other up and glorify your name rather than tear each other down. Help us share things that will benefit all of our residents and draw people into the kingdom. Help us deal with different challenges that we are facing as a team. May we approach each other with respect and kindness. Help us mostly create an environment of cooperation. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America.
States of America, republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Sultana?
Here.
And Mayor Pianto?
Here. Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the action on our minutes of approving of the February 9th meeting? Move to approve.
Second.
Moved in second. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
At this time, we have public comment on agenda items only. There is a time at the end of the meeting to discuss anything of comments or concerns about the city of Easton. Is there any public comment on agenda items today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Under the consent agenda, we have 3 certificates of appropriateness to approve, one for being 14 Center Square, 228 Northampton Street, 159 Northampton Street. We also have approving an appointment to the Easton Redevelopment Authority. And we also have a resolution approving the certified list of entry-level firefighters. And then we have a certified list for the next resolution for the captains, certified list for the captains for firefighting. And we also have a resolution authorizing the administration to accept bids through Municipid for the sale of an old fire apparatus.
I move the consent agenda.
Moved
Second.
and seconded by O'Connell. Any comments or concerns? Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
And Mayor Pianto?
Aye. At this time, we have no reports received by council. Move right into reports of committees. Vice Mayor Brown, Finance.
Mayor, can we move along? Mark is not here yet.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay. Economic Development Committee, Councilman O'Connell.
I do not have a report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Hope you're feeling better. I'm just glad it was your low knee, not your high knee. Planning and Coach Committee, Councilmember Sultana.
No, I have none.
Okay, Public Safety, Councilmember Ruggles.
I have no report.
Public Works Committee, Councilman Ettinger.
I have no report tonight.
Administration Committee, Councilman Milan.
No report.
Report of City Solicitor, Mr. Shear.
Thank you. I actually do have a report. I want to share with council an opinion that my assistant, Jeremy Clark, had obtained on behalf of the Board of Health. And I want to share it because it's actually informative, I think, for purposes of the whole parking program and an interesting aspect of the law. The handicap parking program that we have, that the Board of Health sits and holds hearings for, are in order to assign a spot in front of a person's home or right nearby the home, but it's an exclusive spot once it's granted. And therefore, it's a difficult decision because it can't be just that you're impaired and you have a handicap placard. It has to be so severe that there's a real danger to the person if they would have to walk far. If it's them themselves that they can still drive, it's usually a matter of walking. But let's say you have someone in the household who can't even drive anymore. It's a matter of, can they stay on the spot while someone picks them up? It's just always a difficult and a very subjective decision. But the program is very low cost in the sense that there's a filing fee, but the fee is refunded if you don't get it successfully. If you do get it and you meet certain very liberal financial guidelines, the money's refunded. So the program works well for people who couldn't really afford a legal system, such as even when you go for a zoning application, you have to pay a significant filing fee. That whole thing falls apart if all of a sudden there's going to be detailed hearings and stenographic records, and the position in the 19 or 20 years when I was sitting with the Board of Health before Mr. Clark took over was that there is no right to this spot. It's truly a privilege, and that's what the statute says. A municipality can implement the program. There's no requirement to do so. Anyway, in the years that I was there, the few times somebody thought about appealing, because at the end of when Mr. Hess was sitting as the clerk, he would tell the people, you have a right to appeal under the Local Agency Act, which is no longer going to happen after this decision, I believe. But anyway, somebody decided to, in prior times, I would talk to whether it was an attorney or even the applicant and say, look, you're going to destroy the whole program because we can't deal with appeals in any type of fashion without all of a sudden making everyone pay $500 for the application. And the people always went away because I always told them, I'm going to name it after you when they terminate the program. But in any event, this one person decided to hire an attorney and file an appeal. And one of the defenses Mr. Clark raised was that there is no right to appeal because this is a totally discretionary aspect. And Judge Barada threw out the appeal and basically confirmed that approach, that this is something that is not a right, is not a matter where the board has to do an adjudication, which is what the trigger is for any kind of appeal under the Local Agency Act. And I commend Mr. Clark for his advocacy, and I just want City Council to be aware because it keeps this program viable, because the program really wouldn't be viable if all of a sudden we needed to have a stenographer present and someone had to pay for that and a long adjudication. And it's also good for the Board of Health members who have a tough decision to make. And there's never going to be perfect criteria. But the program essentially the proof of the pudding is the program has worked fine for 22 years. And this was really the first appeal that ever went up to Common Pleas Court. So hopefully there will be no more appeals because according to Judge Barada's decision, there is no right to appeal.
Thank you. We'd also want to just address the penny settlement, so when we get to it, there's no discussion.
Oh, okay. Well, on the agenda is something I had mentioned in executive session a month ago or so. We had a piece of property in the city of Easton out by Route 33, believe it or not. When Penny's was planning their pipeline, they issued a declaration of taking, not to own, but to get an easement so the pipeline could go through that property. Because it's a relatively passive ownership, there was no disruption to the city of Easton, but we did retain initially Mr. Elliott for some advice, and then we retained, once they got into the condemnation, Mr. Elliott suggested that we hire this attorney, Peter Carfley, actually, who specializes in that area. Mr. Carfley sadly passed away in his early 40s, and another firm took over, Ms. Faraday. And there was some questionable right to at least get something for the inconvenience of having to go through the process. And we really didn't have much of an inconvenience, but we were out about $3,200 for the monies we advanced to paid to Mr. Elliott. So we wound up settling it for the amount that's in that resolution. I think it's about $8,000, which covered a little bit of, I said, throw in some money for my time. Not that's going to me, it goes back to the city coffers, along with $1,500, which was a base that they were offering the owners. So that's the background. There's really, you really have no basis not to want to take it, because if you don't want to take it, basically we'll get nothing, because there's no one's going to pursue it. So,
Our reason for, we were opposed to the pipeline, that's why we did all this anyway.
well, we
So
why
would
weren't.
we say no now and I'd be like,
Yeah.
we're in favor of it?
Well, we weren't going to roll over and just say you could have I mean, that's what they basically offered initially to everybody. They had their own agreement. The problem with their agreement is it went even far beyond what you could get in a condemnation. So we had advised against signing that agreement, and they did the declaration taking, and then whatever pressures, I think a lot of it from New Jersey, they gave up on this part of the pipeline. So when they gave up, the case was still pending. This was a way to get rid of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any comments? Go ahead, Mr. Dr.
I-
Ruggles.
Just an observation I made, and it said that the easement was in Bethlehem Township. It was, do we own property in Bethlehem Township?
Well, we technically own, it's a city of. It's surrounded. It's surrounded.
Not Bethlehem Township.
That's right. Is that what's in the?
It says Bethlehem
Bethlehem
Township.
Township.
That may be what the other.
Because I don't want to lose another parcel.
No,
because
no,
we're not
no.
paying
That's
attention.
that's what the other attorney would have put in there, because on their maps, it's surrounded
It's like
by.
people who think Hackett Park is in Palmer Township.
It's. They were looking at a map that shows Bethlehem Township. There's nothing. We know it's City of Easton property, but there's nothing on a county map or otherwise that's going to show as a piece of the City of Easton. The tax rolls do.
I just want to point that out.
Yeah,
So we
okay.
don't lose it like we have in
Yeah.
others.
No, we're not. No, it's not like the big chunk of Wilson Borough that we actually own.
Right. No comment. Okay, thank you. Under my report, I'll just have three quick things. The mayor's special events, Office of Special Events, the Moose is putting together the summer program. Just want to let you know, July 25th to 28th is the summer youth program. Youth camp, we're bringing it back this year in person. We didn't have it last year because of COVID or the year before. So we are bringing it back. If you know any young people, preferably in high school, but they can be in junior high as well, that want to spend a week in city learning how the city functions, get an application for my office, no problem. Also, we will be kicking off, we will be announcing sometime either this week or probably not until next week, until all the contracts are firmed up. May 7th is the reopening of the downtown to the festival season, special event season. We have the opening of the farmers market in the morning. In the afternoon, I know the Chamber is planning a taco festival. And in the evening, we're going to have a concert, a relatively neat concert that we're going to promote. And, but we'll announce that at a later date. Secondly, I just want to give you an update. The Circle, as you know, is moving forward. It's still going to go. And Mr. Enninger, if possible, I'd like to, at the second meeting in March, if you agree to have a Public Works Committee so we can get an update on the Circle. There is two minor changes to the Circle. The parking plan on the Circle, on the southern part of the Circle, not the northern part. The northern quadrants are not being touched at all. The southern quadrants are being, the Crayola quadrant and the one by Pearly Bakers is being upgraded with new parking arrangements and new plazas. The garage is moving along very quickly. It's going together like a Lego project, so I'm sure you're all seeing that going together. We've not had any real concerns about traffic. All the businesses there have been kept apprised, have been updated. They've been quitting by 3 o'clock anyway, so at 3 o'clock it reverts back to two-way traffic. Weekends it's open to normal traffic. The school hasn't had any trouble yet in their facilities, although they get a lot of business with their buses in the morning. Lastly, I'd like to just mention that in March 9th meeting, at our next meeting, I will be giving our State of the City, annual State of the City. That is the one, the charter requires it to be given to City Council at a public meeting first. Before the following week, March 17th, it is at the Chamber of Commerce breakfast up at Lafayette College. If any members of council want to go, please let my office know, and we'll certainly get you on the list to attend. Also, that night, right after my State of the City, as you know, last year I appointed the mayor's office, the Affordable Housing Task Force. They have now finalized the report. I've read it. We've redone it. We revised it a second time, and they'll be bringing you the report. We do have money in the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act money to provide affordable housing and residential rehabilitation, primarily of facades, in the form of grants and low-interest loans. So that'll be coming out next year, next meeting. And also, if I put on your schedule, I'd like to do the group photo next week with the city controller as well, and then one of the directors, since they'll all be here for my State of the City.
Next week. In 2 weeks, or-
Yeah, the next meeting.
Next meeting.
March 9th, yes, they'll be there. So then March 26th, the meeting on the 26th, we'll do an update on all the projects. We went over them today. In addition to the circle in the garage, we have Sitgrave Street, Wood Avenue, the potential community center. We have a lot of projects to update you on in the coming weeks. So we want to keep City Council apprised of that. And that ends my report.
Mayor,
I'm just going to turn over.
Okay, but-
Dr. Ruggles has a question on my report.
No, I don't have a question. Something I forgot to give earlier, but I just wanted to announce to City Council and everyone that we are going to have another community breakfast. It will be April 30th, and everybody is invited.
What time, Raj?
At the church?
Yeah, it'll be at St. John's. It's from 9 to 11.
And I'm sorry, what was the date?
April 30th, it's a Saturday.
You might want to reconsider knowing that Ruggles and Panto are doing the cooking.
Mayor, I have a question. You said about him having a meeting. Are we going to have it at the Wednesday night meeting for Mr. Editor?
Committee meeting Tuesday night.
Tuesday, okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, the photos, did you want them March 9th or March 23rd? Or does it
March
matter?
9th, since all the directors will be here as well.
Okay,
We get one of the directors, one of the elected officials.
okay.
Okay, moving on. Anything else in your report, Mr. Campos?
Well, I haven't given my report yet, and I think,
Oh, we got to go to Finance Committee. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mark is here now, so Mark is going to give us an update on several things. So at this time, I'm turning over to him, where he's going to talk a little bit about the two-year budget, the pension, and also where we are when it comes to Palmer Company, who is the city's auditor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. First off, I'd like to apologize to council. I ran into an issue with the printer, and the printer won in our battle. So I do have quite a, I'd say, voluminous stack of information to hand out. I was, I guess, was hoping that
That's,
we were going
that's
to
a
have a
relative
committee.
term.
What's that?
That's a relative term.
Relative to.
Voluminous. Is that? Maybe to me, it's not voluminous.
Oh, okay.
It was a private joke with Roger and I.
Got it. So I thought we were going to have a committee meeting, so I prepared a lot of information. So I can kind of high level go over it with you this evening, and then if there are questions, we can address at the next committee meeting or council meeting, however council would like to proceed. So hand that out.
Thank you.
While he's passing this stuff out, is there any reason why we can't get these before a council meeting so we can review them?
Yes.
What's the reason?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. There was no reason.
Oh.
I had anticipated presenting this during the committee meeting yesterday.
assuming we're not gonna get spreadsheets anymore, like actual spreadsheets. We're just gonna get paper from now on. Is that the intent from this point going forward?
No, I don't believe, Mr. Milan, that was the question. I can issue these electronically as well. Okay, to start, there are basically two packets here. One is the 2023 budget. So as the charter dictates, we are required to present a two-year budget. So we are now presenting the budget or preliminary budget for 2023. If you look at it quickly, you'll see that the general fund is showing a rather large deficit, if you will. The main driver of that is we do have increases, salary increases per contract, but then the big I would say offset or the decrease is on the revenue side, where we are scaling back our use of reserves, and so we need to make that up as we, over the next several months, as we figure out how best to do that, where we're cutting expenses, where we can bolster revenues based on the trends that we see over the coming months.
Well, as you do that, you'll be booking, right?
I'm sorry?
As you be doing that, you'll be booking it in?
Well, no, this is for the 2023, so this is for
Okay.
next year's, yeah. So this is just, again, a preliminary view of the budget based on, for the most part, 2022 figures. In those instances or on those accounts where we thought that we were impacted by the pandemic for things like amusement and whatnot, we did make some assumptions saying that we believe we'll get back to pre-pandemic levels on some of those. Casino revenues being another good example. Okay, so that is,
Casino revenues, for example, is still under $1 million, but it's over 900,000. It's not up to the 1.25, but it might be by the end of the year. So right now we're booking it at, I think we booked it at 900.
actually, I think we did tweak that up a little
like
bit.
$1 million.
Yeah.
But it might be another $250,000 more than that. We just don't know yet because it's just getting back to normal. State theater's just starting to reopen. All those things will trend during the coming year.
Correct. Then the second portion of the packet that I handed out has to do with just a general finance team overview or an update. First to start, as you recall, we did have Palmer and Company Representative Keith came in to review the 2020 audit. He did have some recommendations that we wanted to address, and so I've addressed those in a response here that I would ask council to read. And then we also had an audit every other year. The state comes in and audits our pension funds. They did have some findings there. These are findings that have been ongoing for a number of years and in large part are tied to our collective bargaining agreement. So these are things that we're trying to move out of collective bargaining or to get in line with third-class city code, but that's a slow process. In addition, there are some changes that we are going to, I think in the not too distant future, propose to council with regards to the police pension ordinances. There are some changes there that we've worked with the FOP to update those and again get those back in line with third-class city code. Then from the finance team or finance department perspective, wanted to let you know that we are getting back up to full staff. We have brought in, as has been mentioned before, some temp help to help us push through and get back on track with the 2021 results, as well as get regular reporting out for this year. As part of that, we've enlisted RKL. They're a national firm that does audit work, business consulting, etc. They're going to come in and help us do an assessment of the team, figure out where, if there are efficiencies, what we can do, what else we may be able to do as a department to streamline things and become again more efficient. They're also may be able to assist with audit prep, but that's still to be determined. And with that, I will turn it over to council if there are any questions. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out. I can send this out electronically, or I will send this out electronically, so that you have that there.
Any questions for Mr. Lozinski, Mr. Brown?
None at all. Anybody else?
Okay, moving on.
Mayor,
Go ahead. Campos' city administrator report. I didn't forget you.
all right, just a couple items.
It's now on the agenda.
A couple items, Mayor.
Now
Oh.
on the agenda.
It's not.
Couple items, Mayor. Mr. Milan had asked for a monthly parking pass report. So we pulled the report out of City Hall systems. The data is actually fairly large. This was condensed after some review. But anyway, as you can see on page 2 of the handout, currently there's 840 passes out there. But if you look at it closely, the category, there's paid and then there's free. The free ones are mostly City of Easton employees. They also consist of yourselves, for example. They also include GEDP as well. This in itself is a static. This in itself is a static report. Doesn't really give you a heck of a whole lot. It's really limited in terms of the intelligence that you can derive from it. So what we did was pull out a sample of last week's utilization. This is a separate database, and as you recall, sometime I think it was just shortly around the start of the pandemic, we had put in counters at each garage, roughly, and it took some time to get that up and running in itself. But we've been with Mazen working fairly diligent on the counter to make sure that it was accurate. Because from experience, we know that the garages in general usually have a high vacancy rate. But here you can see, at least for the first report, this is the intermodal, and the time it starts at 12 a.m. That's 12 a.m. in the morning to 1 a.m. And then it obviously follows all the way through to 11 o'clock. The highest utilization for the intermodal garage is sometime around 12 o'clock roughly, where you have almost 100 spaces utilized, and that's for a 330 space garage. If you flip back to the first page, you'll note that the intermodal garage says that we have a total passes of about 312 of 330. So this just gives us a snapshot. What I think was good, if we move on to the next page, was we did have high utilization. Again, this was first realized anecdotally with some of our staff here on Monday, and just us traveling in town, that there was lines out the door, literally around the block, to enter Crayola. And we usually see that during the holidays. We know that that's the case, all right? And we know that that usually occurs on a handful of days, and it also definitely occurs during festivals, especially some of our big festivals, where the intermodal garage, where the Pine Street garage is heavily utilized. But in this case, again, if you go down to around 12 o'clock and then you go over to the right to about Sunday and Saturday, you'll see where what I just said is comes true. You almost have close to 500. Again, if you flip back to the first page, you'll note that in the Pine Street garage, there's a total of 528 spaces. We didn't get to capacity, but again, we got close, and that was primarily due to Crayola, at least, again, anecdotally, because I have no way to tell you whether it was a Crayola patron or not. Now, what I've learned from this process before I go to the last page in this handout is that, and we've been working on it, I think, for some time. Certainly, COVID paused everything, if you will, because City Council, as you recall, allowed for some free parking. And in general, the market just shut down. So COVID kind of put a pause into us understanding this parking system. But now as we're coming out and these on-paper projects are starting to become real, these real estate development projects, we're starting to really critically analyze the system. As we're going into the system, I will tell you, first of all, it's managed by multiple departments, multiple bureaus, disparate databases that don't talk to each other, and most times it's through Excel spreadsheets and an ordinance that's outdated. So on the ordinance does not distinguish on the monthly parkers between commercial and residential, all right? The ordinance only distinguishes on tiers. One pass versus then you get discounts when you get to a certain level. And forgive me, I think it's 20 and then so on and so forth.
20 and 50.
Right. So then you get discounts. So there's no distinction between the two. So that just makes it problematic when you're asking us to provide information to you when we don't have the tools per se, because this is, we didn't necessarily imagine a literally doubling of our rental units in a really short period of time. We didn't know that those projects will come to fruition. In real estate development, you usually don't know until the shovel's in the ground. And even when they get planning approvals, all kinds of problems can still happen. But nevertheless, here we are, and we're trying to understand the system the way it's designed today. So that being said, I think sometime last year we started really analyzing the various systems. So we've known this internally for some time, that we have disparate databases, that we have multiple heads, so to speak, managing the parking system. So we started to seek some sort of solutions out there, something that made sense to our city size, our resources, and to how we manage. So I am reporting today that we found a solution. We found a solution that could give us real-time data, different analytics, not only in the garage, but outside of the garage, to the point where we actually, myself and the team, the chief of police, public works, went to City of Bethlehem last week. But although we've been doing research and talking to Allentown and talking to other cities for some time, and saw a demo of a solution that we wanted. And the solution could really drill down almost immediately, where it takes, again, multiple people, many hours to produce these reports. And Mark is one of them, pulling this data out of City Hall systems. And then traffic is another department that was pulling manual reports that didn't make sense. But in a short hour's time, we saw a system that we feel that we're going to recommend at a subsequent council meeting. And I'll just tell you that essentially, you could see utilization at any given time for the garages, the way I'm presenting it today, on two separate reports. I can see average time spent in the garage. I can bifurcate between residential and commercial, and then more importantly, in everything else that we could track within the garage, I can see then out on the street utilization by meter, utilizations by meter, including, which was just blowing our minds away, a heat map. So in case the city's ever challenged for giving more tickets in one area versus another, you can show that that's not necessarily the case. And in the case when Bethlehem showed us their heat map, it was an equitable distribution of tickets, so forth and so on. There's a lot of information there. I stuck it in the packet. We are going to be coming back and digging into that detail, but that's the overview that I wanted to provide to you in this pack, and you can read through it. Are there any questions? I just have a couple other bullet points.
Dr. Ruggles?
So the spreadsheet that you gave us.
Yes.
This indicates the number of cars that are actually parked in that particular facility.
At that time, yes.
I don't think it's accurate. Sorry.
That's what, and that's fair. It's what we have.
I mean, intermodal can't be at 0 at night because all of our city cars are in there. I mean, I don't know how many we have, but all the codes cars, the engineering van, everything's still in the garage overnight, right?
Do we put those license plates in the system?
Oh, no, because they would be also in, I don't know, Mayor. I don't know if the municipal vehicles are
Oh,
actually in
some
there. I wasn't looking for them.
My issue, as I told, in all of our meetings we've had over the last couple of weeks, and I'm glad you went to Bethlehem, as someone suggested many months ago and years ago. My concern is that we need ordinance changes that you only get a permit, a card, when you pay the $70. Because if you drill down into the other reports, the first, second, and third car, the second and third car are not additional permits. They're the same car. If I bring my wife's car to work, it's on my list of having two vehicles, but I'm only ever bringing one to work at a time. So that's why I think a lot of these numbers are skewed, because when the mayor at the time made the deal with Crayola and gave them 55 free passes as part of their lease or their experience, we have 99. We have 44 vehicles that are never there. They may be there on different days because at that time they were part-time volunteers. But it skews our numbers. We think there's 99 permits and there's only 55. So I think the ordinance change, and at that meeting when we do the public works, this is part of public works as well, we would look to have some recommendations for, as Mr. Scheer says, temporary changes to the ordinance before the tsunami hits. Like we just did for Seville. I mean, the Seville is not allowed to get permits because they moved in after February 1st. If those 100 people there we're well over our capacity. And then the central business district, who needs the spaces, like the Monarchs and the London Shops and the Easton Outdoor Companies of the world, the Josie's Deli, I mean, that's going to reopen in a couple months after her renovations. They need turnover in their parking on the street, and they're not going to have any. Right now, when I go through town and on weekends, I see the sticker on the back of the car, and they're parked there all weekend. So, just like when I came back from the farmer's market, I sent out the email, we really need to consider not having the winter market on the 300 block of Northampton Street anymore, because obviously it's too late this year, but they don't want to be down in the circle anymore, fine. Then don't bring the winter market up here either. Keep it down on the drive, because Saturday we lost all those parking spaces, and all those businesses that normally would have parking in front of their, like the London Shop or Terra Cafe, they didn't have any parking because it was shut down for the whole morning. Their busiest retailing day is Saturday and Sunday, and most of them are only open Saturdays, so they count on Saturday to be busy, and there was no place to park. So I think we need to be a little bit more forceful with GDP that, yes, we want you to have the farmers market. We're glad you're still doing it. We're glad you built it up to where it is today, and we love the winter market. But if you're not on Church Street and you can't be on the square because it's under construction, moving it to the 300 block was not necessarily the best place to move it. We put all that angle parking on there because we needed more parking, and we took it all away on the busiest day of the week. And I agree with him that we have to, juggle between the residents who live downtown, that really live downtown, not the big apartment complexes, and the business district, because it still is a business district. And that's why we don't allow parking on most of Northampton and 3rd Streets. I added North 3rd Street because of the need down at that end where it is more residential. And I think we need to reevaluate where we allow on-street parking permits to be held, or where they can. For example, I knew a guy who just moved to Florida. Perry lived on top of the Mothers, and he had a $100 ticket, a sticker. He parked on 4th Street because he couldn't park in the square on Northampton Street. So every day for forever, because the guy didn't go anywhere, his car was on 4th Street, right across from Lafayette Bank. So all those businesses in Lafayette Bank Building and the North 401 Northampton Street, they lost that space. So I just think we need to, and Mr. Scheer, and I want to congratulate Mr. Clark also on that ruling, because the Board of Health right now is dealing with that issue, whether or not to give a handicap permit to the business district. And they're not happy about giving it, and they gave one on the end of 3rd Street by Wells Fargo, and that it says permit number only. And so they're getting their own parking space downtown. And, I just think this is a tough issue, and I think
But they still have to pay for it.
they pay the $100. They don't pay
No.
for the meter. No, they don't have to pay for it. That meter's gone. That meter is gone. They just pay, and that's what the
They're
Judge
downtown
Barada's
resident.
ruling.
They're downtown resident.
They're a downtown
Oh,
resident.
okay.
They're a downtown resident. But I think the detail, if any of the council members want to see the detail that came to this conclusion, I mean, we didn't do it because it has a lot of names and addresses, and I don't think we should, we could have, if we redacted everything, we wouldn't see anything anyway.
Well,
But
Mayor,
I don't think we should make
I-
it public.
on the report, there's some specific parameters, and why don't we provide that definition to you? Just because, it takes into consideration entry and exits, but I can follow up, but still gives you a general idea of utilization.
I think, go ahead.
I just one other thing. I think that we really need to pay attention not only to the increase in the number of apartments that are here, but I think we need to take a look at other cities where they've experienced this, and what did they experience as far as other businesses opening up in order to serve that increased population. I mean, we're going to get some, and those businesses are going to have employees. They're going to have other customers that are coming in. So I think just limiting it to the apartments is going to give us an underestimate of what we're really going to need.
So I guess with regards to need, wants, is there a way we can just confirm a solid number that we can all work off of? Like here, I just go up to the screen real quick. Can you see it or not? Can you see it?
Yes.
Can we just agree on what these numbers are so that we can kind of have a firm number to work off of so we can debate these items? Because every time we come back to here, I feel like these numbers are changing. So you're telling me we have 528 spaces.
No, 504.
In the Pine Street garage.
Well,
It should be
In
504
the
instead
Fourth
of
Street
500.
In the
garage,
new
you have
garage?
500.
so how many is it?
In the Fourth Street garage, you're correct. It's 500.
Okay. And then this one here is how many? It's 312.
338.
He's got 312 here.
Oh, yeah, right here you have three. No, that's
What-
depending on passes.
So how many spaces do we have actually in this building?
338 is in this property, in this garage.
That sounds about right.
338. Okay. And last meeting you said we had 572 on-street spaces. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
I didn't put Pine Street in here because I think we need to look past the fact that it's here today, but it's going to be gone tomorrow. Okay? You emailed us back in September that this was the amount of monthly spaces, monthly parking permit holders we had for Pine Street. It was 375. Is that number not correct anymore?
That number changes daily and monthly, so the current number is the one that's presented here on this sheet.
No, it's not.
Which is what?
This says 504.
That's,
But that's not, that's counting 99 for Crayola.
all right, Mayor, so,
So, Louis, do you see my frustration? I mean, I'm laughing because every time we come back to this, something changes. I just want solid footing so we can have a educated discussion about how we can move forward.
no, Mayor, there's, what's that? Okay, first of all, Mayor, we moved the Crayola, first of all, the mayor is right. And there's some, this data is, while it looks simple on the sheet that I gave to you, it's somewhat complicated. And, Peter, I'm gonna get to your point in a second. Yes, we can agree to a number. In the Crayola lease, they have, I think 55, parking spaces that they can use. So that's the number that we use for Crayola. However, they have about 90-some passes out, because they only have 55 at a time that's utilized.
Sure.
But they have different employees utilizing them. And just so you know, we also have, it's another fact here is that, we have individuals that have maybe more than one vehicle. They only can use one vehicle at a time,
That's fair.
okay?
So you think Crayola should go here at 55?
Right,
Okay.
it's in the number that, it's in this number, it's embedded in here.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out actual figures that we can work off of so we can have discussions.
Well, right now, the way we presented it, with paid and free, that includes City of Easton, passes, including the Crayola, we have 840, monthly passes out there.
So monthly in this garage is how many?
Monthly in this garage, flip to page 2,
I'm here. Is it
All right.
one? That's 165.
165. Yeah.
165 plus the 147, but those are employees.
Why? Okay. And-
Listen, it's either free or paid. That's the way I distinguish them.
I mean, that's fine. I just want a number. If it's 165, if we're going to agree to this number, then I think this is the number we're going to go off of that.
Sure.
So it's 165. So, and I only picked one. This is the Confluence, which is what they have leased with us when they go up. Is that correct?
Approximately.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not finalized yet, but that's about.
Yeah.
So, just these numbers, and I haven't get the spreadsheet you gave us 2 weeks ago. I just stopped here just to kind of give a visual representation of where I'm going with this, and just based off of a very simple arithmetic calculation, without any other projects that I included here, that's the number that we have so far to play with. That's not including any other big. That's not including what was the one property, the Moose on 4th Street. Like, these are just, it's just a weird sample I took that shows how much parking we're going to need. I mean,
there's two. Well, it's too simplistic looking at these numbers. That's why I put out a utilization report. Is that
Louis.
at night? Well, if I may, at night, from an experience standpoint, we know, and also from that report for what it's worth, the garages are empty. And the one thing that we learned in Bethlehem and Allentown, and then some of the other municipalities, is that dynamic is common, where you have commercial parkers in the day, they leave, and if you don't have residential parkers at night, it goes empty. So when we look at that intermodal, that 165 of paid, that's mostly businesses parking in there. So it empties out at night.
right, but you have to understand something too. We only have a certain number of parking spaces to go off of during the day. We have other businesses that are going to use these spaces. People are going to be parking here. They may not leave for work.
No, fair enough, and that's why I pulled out the utilization report.
Right,
You
but
can see that
to Dr. Ruggles'
even if you
point,
take
though-
into consideration, perhaps it's how it's counted and how the tracker is calibrated, you were only still at a third capacity during the day for the whole week. Even the Walker study only took a 3-day sample. I mean, we took a 1-week sample
right, but
on a good week, on a
busy week.
on a
was a holiday.
February where it was really nice weather, where people do go out.
But it was also, Crayola was super busy. Right. We know that.
It was, and actually, it was a good sample because Monday was Presidential Day, President's Day, and Crayola was busy. So that was actually probably a really relevant sample.
and that's I'm okay with that. But you kind of have to understand from this perspective, from this analysis, to Dr. Ruggles' point, like even on Friday in our garage, there's no parkers here.
Well, let's just say that Dr. Ruggles made a good point. So let's add 100 spaces in there. You still have plenty of spaces in the
Oh,
garage.
sure, yeah.
Right, but
But why, I guess, Mazen, why are we getting a 0? Is that because at 1 a.m., at 11 p.m., nobody came in and left? It only tracks the cars when you come in and when you leave, not while you're there. You're going to come up to the podium, please.
No, you got to speak in.
You got to speak because there's people at home watching us.
Here.
So smile for the camera.
Yeah, so I would have to actually check with Parking Logic and see what's behind how the report was generated because I don't have access to the back end of the data. But technically, it should be counting, because there are some city cars, like Dr. Rogas mentioned. So if the car came in on Wednesday and left
Didn't leave.
and leave until the next Wednesday or something like
But
that,
it did
should
come in
be
at 11
carried over.
o'clock, is my point. Is this only counting the number of cars that came in at 11 o'clock?
It's the
12
cars
a.m.
are in and out, in and out. The cars are
This is
coming in and out.
2300, that's a-
Yeah, this is a 24-hour, you're right, this is just a 24-hour snapshot.
Right,
So you would have to use the day before, the day after data.
no, I'm asking is, like, it says zeros. Does
I
that
have-
mean that nobody just came in at 11 o'clock at night or left at 11 o'clock at night?
Technically, I think that's the way the report is created. So it's not actually carrying over the number of
Okay.
cars.
Then
That
the
are
second
actually-
question is, on your utilization report, if at 11 o'clock in the morning, 67 on Wednesday came into the intermodal garage, is that how many came in or how many are in there parked? Because in that case, then the zero should be whatever is parked.
So it's an occupancy. They call it an occupancy report, right?
Okay.
So now there's another reports for ingress and in and out, in and out. So some cars could be just coming through and not parking. So the sensor would pick it up on both sides, on the entrance, on the exit. So this is technically, it should show how many cars park
Parked in the garage.
every hour. This is what the report is sending. Now, sometimes there
The
could be an
zero
issue.
shouldn't be there.
Yeah, so this is not 100% because sometimes there could be maybe an issue with the sensor. Maybe the sensor didn't pick up the car. So
Okay, or the zero should be there if the city vehicles are not, the plates aren't being recorded.
I have to
Or-
speak with Parking
Or
Logics and
when
get
this-
more information.
When this started, we didn't, it wasn't, the number of cars that were in the garage were not.
But he counts them manually once a week.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I've been going. I mean, the Pine Street is just too much to do. We have to do it in the morning. But the intermodal garage, we've been doing that, and I think this is almost as accurate as we'll get. But again, I have to defer maybe to the next city council meeting and speak with Parking Logics and just get more information on how the report is actually counting the cars that are in and out because
That's fair. With the zero, I was saying, oh, well, people just aren't coming or going at that time of the night. But in reality, if the 67 is how many people are parked in there,
it should carry over and just continue
Should, right.
technically if like by 11 o'clock. So if there's still 20
I
cars in
know,
there, but
as
not-
I've been watching these numbers for a long time, our availability at night is I'll bet 90% availability.
and it
I mean,
should be.
we can rent to every business that's coming in here because every apartment complex that's coming in, we can rent to. And we need to switch to a day-night pass rather than just a 24-hour pass. And frankly, we have to look at these free passes. GDP's getting free passes, Crayola's getting free passes, the city employees are getting free passes. Yes, they should get free passes when they're working, but it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week pass.
Well,
So-
that's the way it looks on paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's.
And you
but-
use it, you can use
But
it, right?
the LPR says you should be here.
Right.
So I just think we need to take a look at how the ordinance reads and change it. For example, if you have 55 permits, whether you're paying for them or not, you get 55. And those people are just going to have to switch and the Crayola experience are going to have to keep them. I mean, this idea of giving out 99 passes. So I'm not working at Crayola, but I can still park free.
Right.
On Saturday night, I come down for dinner, I can still park.
Correct.
All I'm saying is, I think what this, in the last year, we've really looked at this, especially post-COVID, and with the trip to Bethlehem, we need to really take a good look at that ordinance because parking, and again, my point, very honestly, is the lack of parking is going to halt development. Everybody's worried about all these big apartments. Well, if they can't park on the street, they have to park in the garages. Once the garages are full, and we're making contracts with these developers now, if Mr. Benner doesn't move on his and doesn't make a contract with the city, he may not be able to build that building because we may not be able to give him the parking. He's going to have to find the parking within 600 feet someplace else, and I don't know where it's going to be.
Mayor, one thing that we learned from Bethlehem is that they actually, imagine you were the third person that was in Bethlehem. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Interestingly is because they have a good system in place, that they actually oversubscribe their garages by 20%. So they sell more monthly passes by roughly 20%. Again, though, you have commercial and residential utilization. The other thing is to the numbers that we're looking at, the 840 passes that we have today, and the the 850 or so structured spaces that we currently have in place. One piece of this is that these garages that are that are coming online as part of these apartment complexes, in the case of the Marquee, they are entering into an agreement with the city where they're going to be sharing 200 spaces during the day. So that's and it certainly then helps the system the way we're looking at it on paper. So again, I'm comfortable enough to say that these numbers give us a reason, I guess, to pause and make changes so we can get a better system in place and better technology. Ironically, in terms of inflation, the one item that has come down in terms of costs is what's called license plate readers. They're fixed LPRs that would stay stationary and read license plate as you're coming into the garage. Right now, we're using a totally different technology. But when we switch to the LPRs, which are now more affordable than they were 2 years ago when we started this, like significantly more affordable, it's not only going to give us the analytics that we need, but it's also going to then dovetail nicely into our on-street enforcement capabilities. I don't know if you wanted to speak to it at all, Mazen.
So the first thing I want to mention is that right now in the garages, we're counting on parking logic. So there are sensors in the grounds, and we have the signs and communicating with the cloud. So anything could go wrong where 5 cars could come in, not get scanned, or if they didn't hit the sensor on the right spot. So this data is not 100% accurate, maybe 10% here and there. As far as new system, like right now, we don't have the capabilities to just come up and just say, this is 99.99% accurate. So with the system that we reviewed, and also with the LPRs, the fixed LPRs in the garages to monitor the license plate, so we can distinguish between permit holders and non-permit holders in the garages, and even on the street as well. So this way, we'll be able to kind of pinpoint exactly and give you more accurate data on what we have and what we don't have, and then present that to you. But we need the technology in place, and this is something that unfortunately we don't have. We're just trying to piece together from Kelly and Ryan, from City Hall Systems, and from the parking logics, and trying to present it and say this is what we have.
But it doesn't dismiss the fact that we only have a certain number of spaces, though.
Yeah, that's something beyond.
Right. We have a fixed
What's on the
number
ground
of spaces.
versus this is
Right.
beyond. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, analytically, I get it, but I mean, the software. I mean, I thought the new software we got was going to allow us to do this stuff. The new system that we signed up for a couple of years ago.
Right.
I thought we were going to have all these analytics, and we have nothing except
No.
for this.
No, from what they told us and what we were able to pull out didn't match up. So, and you're still talking about multiple databases, but initially, yes, you're right, and it was a cost factor. It was a cost factor on the system that we took into consideration, and then we rolled out, was one of the reasons. But then when COVID hit, everything paused for 2 years.
So is it my assumption that the equipment that we have today and the equipment that we may have to purchase for this new system, if we go with it, will be different,
So right now we're using for enforcement. We're using Kelly and Ryan.
right? Equipment, not software, equipment.
The handheld
LPRs in the garage.
and well, we don't have any LPRs in the garages right now. So this would be a new equipment coming in.
No fixed LPRs.
Fixed
They
LPR.
drive them around.
So the officers on the street, they use the handheld.
Sure.
Scan.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah. So
In
in
the
the
garage.
garages, we don't have any LPRs. What we have is the parking logics that just comes in, and that's the report that you're looking at. That comes the cars in and out, and they have a sensor. So we don't have any.
Why do I
fixed
thought we
cameras.
bought LPRs at the garage?
No, not for
No.
garages. We bought kiosks.
Yeah, and those are you won't be able to see who are the permit holders. You won't be able, like, if I
Right.
go in there, I'm not paying. So
we're
that
good.
data.
Okay.
So the patrol officers are actually scanning, but they're scanning the cars, but that data is only kept for like 30 days and then just get deleted. So you wouldn't be able
And
to.
not all of it scanned. Some permits are done manually.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't. I mean, again, I mean, thank you very much, by the way.
No.
It still doesn't dismiss the fact that we have
finite number of
Yeah,
spaces.
that's the bottom line.
But, and right now, in all of our evaluations, at night, if the person who comes into, let's say, the Seville or the Marquis or the Confluence has a night pass that allows them in after 6 o'clock, we have ample sufficiency for every development that is on the books today. Now, that may change, but right now, with Confluence is wanting to rent 185, there's always, other than city vehicles, there's no one in here at night. There's no one. And I've been keeping an eye on that for 6 months. So city council will be getting a recommendation to do a daytime pass and a nighttime pass, and a cost for those each pass. And your nighttime pass may be a fraction of what this, it may not be $70 anymore. Daytime might be 50 and a nighttime 50. I don't know.
But Mayor, I have a question then. If you're, just based on this spreadsheet then, if what you're saying is accurate, if there's no utilization, I'm not sure how there's 97 cars here on Saturday at midnight then. That's 97 out of 338 spaces. You see what I'm saying? Like,
So you have 238 left.
right.
That's what
not
I'm saying. They're 185 we can handle with no problem.
right, but my thing is, if they don't leave the next morning though, if
They
we
get a
leave-
ticket.
Right, but if we lease the space to them, how are we going to kick them out though?
They only have a nighttime pass. If they're not out by 9 o'clock the next morning, they get a ticket. J.B. Riley does it up in Allentown all the time.
No, they do it in other cities.
Yeah,
Other
they do it. Well, they're doing it in Allentown and Bethlehem. I mean, if you have a nighttime pass, you
I'm
can
not
park.
sure. I'm not sure if they're doing it in Allentown, Bethlehem, there, but there are.
But JB Riley, it's a private lot, Mayor. It's a public lot. It's a public garage. I'm not sure how, like, if someone is living next door, they come home at 10 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock, if they don't leave, they're gonna get a ticket. It just doesn't make logical sense to me. If I'm home for the week, if I'm off working, like I took a week off, and I park my car in the garage, and I don't leave because I'm home all week, I'm gonna get a parking ticket then.
I think that you wouldn't say that that's. You wouldn't look at this myopically and say there's only this or that. There may be different levels. So
There may be somebody who has a 24-hour pass.
you may have someone that has a 24-hour pass, and that's something that we have to come back and present to city council.
But Louis,
And there may be, I mean, I think it'd be very good to talk to J.B. Riley's people to understand a little bit more how they handle theirs, but I just, in their presentation, when they were giving the presentation here, it sounded like they were very efficient with their parking. And it may be, in that particular case, if somebody's gonna have be home on vacation for a week, they might be able to call up the city and say, hey, I'm gonna be here, I need to extend my pass for 24 hours.
But Roger,
You know?
the argument to what you're saying is we don't own that garage anymore. I'm talking about our garage here. The garage behind
No,
us.
but I'm saying.
But JB Riley he's different than us.
No,
Like,
I understand that, but
Okay.
my point is that they manage their parking in Allentown, okay? And from what they presented, they have day and night passes, they have
Right.
a whole system that's set up,
They have good analytics, right?
which could be implemented in our garages,
So let me expand a little bit about it, because it's not, we're not asking you to make a decision today.
Right.
This is the problem, all right? We're identifying the problem. Council, on the one hand, is starting to manage this problem by this ordinance that you may or may not vote for tonight, all right? But the administration is asking you to, slow down on-street permit parking because there is development coming. This problem, and we have to then look at the ordinance once it's paused and then come back with better solutions. But the only way we can do that is if we have better analytics. We don't have it. I'm already putting out reports, and within 15 minutes, Roger's already poking holes at it, and you're right. And, and Peter's bringing up some solid points, and he's right too. All right. We have between now and probably the next 3 years to really fix this.
But that's the gap.
That's the gap. But on the ordinance, we want to take a look at the on-street parking
Well, we have
immediately.
between now and 2 years, because next year J.B. Riley's going to come here, or not J.B. Riley.
Confluence.
Let's say the Confluence are going to come here, wants to have a contract for 185 spots.
Right.
we gotta either have
Well,
yes or no.
Right. So well, on paper, right, but the utilization's not gonna come
Right,
till
it's
later.
not gonna happen. for
Right. So by the time they get a CO, you're talking about from today is like maybe about maybe
2023.
3 years. Yeah.
24, I'm sorry.
2.5, 3 years.
Sorry, 2022.
So anyway, I just wanted to put that into perspective because sometimes I feel like we're trying to make a decision for today. We're just bringing you the problem. And this is sometimes the problem that I have in government is that we have to think about the long term and the long term right now is 3 years.
We heard it today from one of the people, one of our meetings, parking is gonna choke our downtown development. And it's gonna stop it. If you don't have parking, right now, we're utilizing the Pine Street garage for those people who live in Seville because they can't rent them. They can say, oh, it's that parking lot right in the back. That garage is being built. Yeah, well, it's not done till June. And so they want to rent in February and March, not in June. So,
And I don't want to get into details at all, but we just met with City Center right now because they're about to take their project through the planning process, and they're talking about potentially expanding, adding, significantly increasing their garage capacity. And we started talking about not only monthlies but dailies. That changes the way we look at this. But here's the fundamental aspect of it. The administration's asking. We've looked at this. We have a lot of chiefs, no pun intended. No pun intended here. A lot of chiefs looking at this system. The one thing that the Walker study did recommend is to centralize the parking management, have one parking czar, if you will. But the other thing is that before we even get there, and we've talked about this, is we need analytics. So before we can even go to the next step, the first phase would be look at the software that could provide us real-time data so we don't have to second guess on whether there are cars or not cars, whether there's an internet connection or not an internet connection that's skewing the numbers. But get the initial software that works with an LPR system, which is affordable and can fit within our budget today, and there's an ROI on it. Mm-hmm. And then that way we can then go to the next level and say, oh, by the way, this block, this metered block here has 98% utilization on the app. Council, we don't really need meters on that block. It's just a waste of money. But over here, for some reason, everyone's using coin transactions, coin-initiated transactions. But that's the kind of information that they're getting.
Well, Walker talked about that a little bit in the neighborhoods where utilization of parking was underutilized.
And you're right, but I'm telling you right now, we don't have the tools in place to give you better information.
but we gotta get it.
Yep.
Can I just throw, while I'm thinking about it, throw
Yep.
one more wrench into it here? We have a decrease in parking in the winter. The fact that our roofs don't allow parking.
That's always been an issue and something that we're addressing with DPW, and it's an issue because of demand getting to other places first, and potentially a union issue too. But that's something that we're working with DPW on, and we're on it. So we're well aware of that.
It may be buying the right equipment too. We can get a skid loader up there and we can clear it. It's a matter that we don't need to clear it right now. It's not a matter that it can't be cleared. And they dump it over the side and pick it up with another loader and put it in a truck and haul it away. If you have a 36-inch snowstorm, it makes it a lot of work. But with a 6-inch snowstorm, we can do it. It's up until this point, it's like Washington Street Hill. We can plow it, but now we just close it because nobody should be going up and down that street because even when you plow it, it's gonna be icy. So
That actually brings up another point then. What happens to snow emergencies then?
You're right. It's an issue. You're not going to be able to have the bandwidth to accommodate just opening up the garages.
So what do you do with the cars in snow emergency routes then?
I mean, you can't allow cars to park into the garages. You have to work around that. It's an issue. It's a legitimate issue that we have due to this growth. Or we can stop development and just keep the top of the decks vacant completely.
Well, I mean, we are stopping development though. I mean, this
will stop
is
development.
going to stop it. Like, I'm not sure if that's a discussion you guys have, but this is essentially going to stop development in downtown Easton.
Well, cities can only grow so much to begin with. So to think that they can grow indefinitely is not accurate. And certainly there's limitations in the zoning
Sure there is.
code and real estate. Obviously,
Well, the zoning code's easy. We can change that. We've changed it numerous times.
Yeah, but there's only a finite amount of space that you actually have.
The question
Well,
becomes, you
I would
don't
disagree
want,
with that.
do you want to lose your small town charm? I mean, people are coming here because of the small town charm. I mean, I'm all for development. I worked for a developer for 13 years. The concern I have is, I think the urban renewal lots that were cleared back in the early 70s, the late 60s need to be developed. They surface lots should not be allowed to begin with. They're missing teeth. I think the Seville is a perfect example of that. I think it's a beautiful building that fills in the 3rd Street corridor that is known as Millionaires Row. And I don't know that we should allow people to, our historic district should stop the demolition of buildings, but you're going to get that next. And we got to be
Thank you.
firm. We have to be firm.
And the point being too, if we look back in the early 70s into the 80s, everybody was going out to the malls. They're now starting to come back to the downtown corridor. Therefore, that's why we're seeing the growth. And it's just not here, it's all over.
And that's exactly why, Mr. Brown, that we're trying to get a handle on the on-street parking permit that I did start back in 1987 because nobody was downtown living. Oh, I'm not going to live downtown. Why should I get an apartment downtown? I got to pay for parking. Okay, let's make it cheap. And $100 then is worth $254 a day. You'll never get $254, nor do I expect to. People who live downtown, who own or occupy, I have a secretary who lives on 4th Street. She owns a home. It's a single-family home on 4th Street. She rents a space from a nearby parking lot rather than paying $100 to park on the street, because on her street there's very little parking. Very little parking on that street. So I just think that what we do want to, when I get the person who comes and wants to tear down the Detweiler building, for example, which I know Mick doesn't want to do, I mean, that's a beautiful building. That's, where the Dunkin' Donuts is on the 1st floor, but that's a beautiful building that squares our square. And it's an iconic building, and I'm saying,
And that's the beauty of the downtown.
Yeah, square's our circle, the circle and the square. So I'm at odds. I agree with Peter that cities are evolving and changing all the time. And like I suggested to someone the other day, where we have the floodplain today, we were contacted by the county and Pima to buy a piece of property down, that they were going to give us all the free money, and then we would own it and maintain it in perpetuity. My problem with that is that the city's going to be around forever, let's hope, and in perpetuity anyway. And 100 years from now, the Lehigh River may not be there, it may not be flooding, but we're going to sign a document that says we're going to take care of this property in perpetuity and cut the grass every year, but we can't build on it ever. Well, what is ever? Ever in the city's vernacular, it's relative. We don't know what's like. 100 years from now, that Lehigh River may be dried up. Who knows? It may be 150% wider. But I don't think city council, we can make a decision today that hamstrings the city for forever. It doesn't make sense to me. So.
Mayor, if there aren't any other questions, just one other.
Go ahead.
On my report, I just wanted to note that the appraisal came back for 27th South 3rd Street or the Pine Street Garage. It came back at 3.1 million. And just to make it clear, Third Class City Code says that when we dispose of property, it's to be sold to the highest bidder per se. I mean, this was a lot more complicated than what the language has in the Third Class City regs, but nevertheless, just City Center, it was the highest bidder. So,
And that bid is based on what the economy's doing right now too. So, of course, we're getting higher.
that's correct. Yeah, they're also taking down the Pine Street Garage, that's a value to us.
To us, it's a value of about $2 million.
Right.
I also, based on that, and I just will want to say, and I see my WFMZ reporters here, I have a real big concern about development downtown and what Med Ed is doing to our developers. It's just horrible. And the amount of money they're charging. As a young boy, I remember being in this city when downtown was thriving with industries, businesses, and residential development. And for them to be charging some developers millions of dollars to upgrade their grid is ridiculous. Here in this building, we paid almost $200,000 to upgrade their grid. That doesn't happen with PPL. And with the Easton Yards project over on South Side, I had to literally get pretty aggressive with my email to Med Ed and tell them if they don't get over there and put that transformer in, they were promised a transformer that the developer's paying for in April. As of January, they still didn't have it done. And April of last year. And January, I mean, they had people moving in February and they had no electricity yet. And I just, when the PUC, and I talked to Senator Boscola about this because, and State Representative Bob Freeman, this is getting out of hand. We met with a developer today at City Center, and in Bethlehem, PPL looks at that as an investment that gets them more money because they have more customers. But here, between I will give J.B. Riley credit. I thought he was going to tell us, take your garage and go home. We're not doing this, because if I was told how much money that was, I would probably say that. That adds a lot of money to their over 10% to their project, and that's just ridiculous. So I just wanted to bring that up. Also, this week we did have a meeting with Lanta, Owen O'Neill, and it was a really good meeting about our intermodal garage. The fact that they're only open till 4 hours from 9 to 1, and the bathrooms are closed forever. We offered to form some kind of partnership. We'll help pay for the bathroom attendants or the security agents, and Owen was and we found out that they're already doing that in Allentown. So we have young adults here who are skateboarding and bicycling in the garage, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they need a place to entertain, but they're also now playing chicken with the buses, let alone the cars. They're coming down the ramp the wrong way, and they're going head on with cars before they pull off, and people are getting afraid, and we certainly don't want that in here. But our ARPA budget, when we revise that budget, we will put, as you know, we look to put for the homeless and for the public places to go to bathroom, public bathrooms. So we're looking at either this facility or the new garage. The new garage does not have any bathrooms. So we're looking at putting bathrooms in. The reason why these bathrooms are faulty, and Owen admitted it, is that these are single-use bathrooms. So somebody goes in the bathroom, shuts the door, locks it, and they can shoot up and do whatever they want. And we've had people destroying the bathrooms, shooting up in the bathrooms, and it was not easy for our maintenance staff to clean it. So we're looking at multi-use bathrooms over at the new garage, and maybe we'll come back. Well, actually, we'd use American Rescue Plan for that because it would aid. I believe very strongly that the public, and more importantly, the homeless, need a place. I would love to be able to put a shower in there. I think that there's a homeless population in the city. We can put our hand in the sand all we want. The fact is, we should be doing something to take care of them. And then, I get people who say, "Oh, you do that, you'll attract more." Well, I don't think so. But right now, we're attracting from Western New Jersey because there's no shelters over there. Exactly.
I thought we had security in this garage.
We did for about 6 weeks, and
left?
it didn't help. The kids were disrespectful.
When I came in today, there's a guy standing down there, and he said they have posted that they're supposed to be open, but they're not. Now, I didn't look at the door to see if they actually
their
have
new
that.
door, they'd have that's on the door,
Right.
painted on the door. On the sign that's printed out says 5:05 to 9:15 they're open.
It does, 9:15 every day.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's absolutely
But
ridiculous.
in general, it was a good meeting.
Yeah,
O-
well, it was a
Owen-
good meeting with
yeah.
Lanta. I was very, very, and he promised that he wasn't going to be cutting any more roots in Easton, that he's looking to put back the roots that he cut on this lower end of South Side, or the western end of South Side, and he's looking to put up bus shelters and help us make the bus stops a little bit more friendly.
Yeah,
Especially with the other.
he's actually, it was surprising. He heard our complaint or our issue rather, that the office is not open. So he's working then with the operator.
Yeah, just so you know, Lanta doesn't operate that. They lease it. Lanta got us the $7 million to pay for that space and the intermodal, the first floor. they lease it to Transbridge, and Transbridge operates that, and Transbridge is having a hard time getting people to work down there other than a part-timer for 4 hours a day.
What's really nice is that he went to bat and said, we asked him about these bus shelters that are proposed for the downtown, and we asked him if he would upgrade them so they would be decorative, maybe perhaps match our street lighting and everything else that's going on. He actually didn't blink and said that he's going to propose an upgrade, and we asked him, well, what's the allowance? Because we figured he's going to push back at us. He said the
they'll cover it.
take care of it, and they're going to propose something.
It was a very good
really
meeting.
nice. It was a really good meeting.
It really was.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else,
No.
council? Moving on to correspondence. There's no correspondence. Move right into unfinished business. Madam Clerk.
Okay, we have bill number 2 that was introduced by Mayor Panto, which would amend sections in chapter 399 parking permits of the Code of the City of Easton.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Roll. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Did you confirm about his executive order regarding?
The executive order should not have been issued. There's room within the traffic ordinances for executive orders for 90 days, and I believe with some of the emergency orders that came into play back 2 years ago, the mayor was misguided in that regard. So the executive order, there's no support for this specific executive order because of the ordinance that was in place.
And we're going to go retro back to February 1st.
That, yes.
We have legal standing to do that, correct?
We'll find out.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, I mean, we talked about that executive order this morning in our solicitors meeting, and I made a mistake. I admit it. But the mistake was made to try to curb an onslaught of people coming in and getting a $100 street permit, which was very much a concern of ours. The tsunami didn't occur. We stopped the tsunami. That's good. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
No.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana? No. Mayor Panto?
Aye.
We have-
I'd like to we want to remove number 2 under new business. I forgot we wanted to do that.
Number 2 or number 3?
Number 2,
Oh, number 2. So we're removing, hold on.
the captain, promotion of the captain, in fire department. I don't have a 3.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing,
Oh,
don't
okay.
worry.
So I'll make the motion to remove number 2 under new business.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mayor, that's just because the test didn't come back.
Right.
That's the only reason.
I know.
How did it get on the agenda?
Because the test was expected to be back, and rather than miss the deadline, we had to submit it. Because your clerk is very specific about deadlines, and we knew that we weren't going to get a result to Monday.
Just
So-
doing my job.
And it was a high probability, but the person was out sick, which happens in this environment.
Roll call.
Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Oh, go
We
ahead.
have a problem with item F then,
Item F.
on the consent agenda.
It had that in there.
That's just,
That's
that's
accept,
just
Yeah,
Has to
promote-
come back,
eligible
though.
list.
Test didn't come back. You just said
The
it.
numbers
Test came
are
back
there.
Monday.
It was the physical.
But how do you,
Physical.
Yeah, it's
But
the way,
it's-
The
a-
numbers
it's-
are there.
hold
it's
on.
a combination of both, though.
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second.
You can't certify a list. I mean, trust me on this one. Like, I sat there for years. Thank you, Mayor, by the way, for the appointment.
He did not get, the individual didn't, maybe we talk about this in executive session, but regardless, it's a physical examination. I think it's part of the
Because he
background
was sick.
to move into, because the Civil Service Board did already approve the list. So this then moves on to City Council. So I think F, and I would defer
How-
to the attorneys, F is different from
But how do you
actually
pr-
moving someone into promotionally into the position.
But you just said he wasn't eligible though, did you not?
There's a physical examination
Right.
portion for him to actually then finally, and
Be
to
promoted.
to get promoted.
But how did they approve the list then?
I don't think the physical exam is not the.
There's no physicals examination or physicals at all.
Yeah, I don't think that was part of
Then
the oral or written exam to.
It's
testing
only
the captain.
only for entry-level firefighters now.
Then I'm completely confused. then.
Yeah, I would not have an answer to your question without an explanation as to what exactly what do you need to create the list?
Right.
And then that's the first step. What's needed to create the list? And is that the same as the reason why you pulled this appointment? You may have I don't know that there isn't a step one where you create the list and there's something to another step before the person's actually appointed that wasn't met yet, and that's why
These two items are independent.
they're totally different. So in other words, if the list is a preliminary step, so any of those people on the list are eligible, then the person from the list may still need to meet another criteria before they could actually be appointed.
That's why we're pulling it off. The certification of the list is based on an oral and written examination
Captain.
for captain.
Entry levels, there's a physical.
And
It's a physical agility, it's not a physical.
Right, yeah.
for the
but-
record, I attended the Civil Service Board where the Civil Service Board approved the list. And they certified the list. They did not certify the lieutenant's list because one of the applicants is questioning the exam. So I had to sit down with the applicant. So, I mean, those two are distinct.
But I think if we're approving the list as we did in the consent agenda, I'm not sure why we're pulling it then off of the resolution then, because you're promoting off that list though.
Correct.
So I'm not sure why we're pulling it then. I mean, if the list
Well, it-
gave us two people, the mayor, did you appoint or did the fire chief appoint?
I do.
So he made the
Well, he
appointment.
makes his recommendation to CA and
Right,
I.
but my point is like, he already passed the list. So theoretically, if we got the list from the Civil Service Board, that means that he's certified then. That means we can vote on the resolution then that he's gonna be promoted.
For example, and it's not the case here, but if the city has a policy that you have to have a drug test before you get a promotion, and he didn't get the drug test yet, we can't approve him yet.
But he can be.
So this happens to be a physical.
But we don't do physicals though, Mayor, for promotions.
The Civil Service Board doesn't, but we do.
Separate and.
In other words, HR has its own criteria in addition to the Civil Service Board.
Correct.
Because we want to avoid dealing with personnel action, and I would note at this point in the agenda, this is something that you've just withdrawn from the agenda. So
Right, but
if
the
no,
question is a legitimate question he's asking in letter
I
F.
understand what the inconsistency is.
Right. But what we accepted was the certified list, and it was certified by the board. And we'll check into the rest of it, but I'm asking for the pool number 2 only because there was a reason why I was asked. Mr. Campos answered.
And ultimately, if you're going to start dealing with personnel matters,
into
I would
executive
suggest you got to go into exec session.
Right,
So we're taking a
Madam
vote
Roll.
on removing it.
I'm removing it.
Okay. Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
And Mr. Milan?
Aye.
We have a resolution that's being introduced by by Mayor Panto that approves the settlement agreement that was spoken about earlier under Mr. Shear's report between the City of Easton and Penn East Pipeline.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Dr. Ruggles.
I'd kind of like to see this money go to youth sports that we're getting back.
Well, you were smart. I was just thinking that myself.
I mean, we could maybe buy uniforms or something like that, that's over and beyond what their budget currently is. And
Good
it's, it's not a lot of money, but I think it shows an interest, so.
Making that in form of motion?
Well,
We'll vote on
well,
this
that's, yeah,
first.
that should be a separate matter that gets on an agenda because we can't introduce new
Right.
items that are on the agenda. I'd also note that at least there's like 3,200 or so that was monies that the city paid out for outside
Really?
legal counsel so that,
Yeah, but that's in the
but,
budget.
but you could, yeah, well, you could decide, it's your, that's one thing, that's totally your province. I just suggest it be done by a separate resolution. And by the way, the Bethlehem Township notation, you know, that's something that, as far as the litigants go, they probably think it's Bethlehem Township, because I'm looking, they prepared that is in our document.
We know it's Easton, because we have that long tail.
We know we own it, period.
No, no.
I mean,
We not only own it, we own property in Williams Township.
It
It's
is
still
the
Williams-
city of Easton.
It's
Yeah, well, that's
incorporated
true.
into
We
city.
gave
Well,
some away, too.
I think it's, I think we should consider putting defensive positions up there too with some of that, no.
Yeah, we have electric fences.
Nope.
Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
At this time in the meeting, is there any other business for city council, new or old? We'll open up floor for public comment on any matter concerning the city. Just come up, give your name, address, and you have 5 minutes. Anyone like to address city council? Back row, second row, third row? No? No? You just came for the entertainment. Well, I knew that. That was easy. Okay. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
I just want to introduce, why don't you stand up and give us a little bit of your background, or why you were appointed, because you have we're very fortunate to have him. When I got his resume, I'm like, oh, this is the kind of guy we want on our redevelopment authority, even though he's a lawyer.
Please don't hold that against me. I'm also a Nazareth area high school grad, so please don't. The ink's dry, so.
So
don't
can I
take it
ask you a
back.
question? What is a blue eagle?
Never seen one.
Brown eagle, bald eagle? I never saw a blue.
Spray paint.
Spray
What's a
paint.
red rover then?
When they get
That's-
mad, they get red in the face. I knew that was coming.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much, council. I went to Boston University after attending Nazareth, and then I worked for a number of years as a journalist. I was a newspaper reporter, which I really got an intimate look into the workings of municipal government. Covered a town called Billerica, Massachusetts, there was always something going on. And then I got a job for Boston Magazine in Boston, of course. And so I covered quite doggedly, I might add, the Boston Redevelopment Authority, something of a white whale of mine, and certainly no love lost with the members of the BRA and myself. So that's what makes this appointment a bit ironic. But I've studied, actually, one of the first things I did when I moved to Easton fairly recently was attend Representative Freeman's architectural tour of the city, and said something along the lines of, well, who's ever heard of urban renewal? And having studied the West End and the history of urban renewal in Boston, and that included, unfortunately, some of its worst abuses, I understand that you folks here have experienced much the same.
I had the same.
So I've been educating myself on some of the history. I'll continue to do so. My partner Danny and I, who you very graciously appointed to the Environmental Advisory Council, we went over to the Easton Public Library this afternoon, went to the Marks Room and read up on some materials there on the history of urban renewal here. Very excited to serve, and again, thank
We're
you.
happy to have you on board. The Redevelopment Authority is already starting to put together a group of parcels for me to begin as part of our affordable housing program. And I really do wish the state would give us some kind of rent control, but that's not going to happen in the near future from what I hear. But we're just glad to have you on board. I mean, our authorities, boards, and commissions make more decisions than we do. I love when people blame me for development and the looks of the development. We have nothing. We don't ever approve developers up here. The development is approved by the Historic District Commission, the Zoning Board, and the Planning Commission. We have final say in nothing. No.
Well, we kind of do.
We kind of do. We can
kinda
change things around, and we can.
We vote on resolutions from the Historic District Commission.
Right. We certified their certificate of appropriateness. So, But thank you, and we're welcome.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Look forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Klaus, I have something for you if you could wait then. All right, so
Rita, I don't think you heard.
Get on the board and give
Rita,
it
I don't think you heard you.
I don't think so either.
All right,
All right, for a vote to adjourn, Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana,
Aye.
Mayor Pianto,
aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, David.
I was pulling you.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Good night.